obviously the two charities will be helping and supporting the students. So that's one thing. The problem with getting placements in the UK or in Europe or in America is that they're going to be expensive. So you might be able to place somebody, 5, 6 students in Turkey or Gaza, or Turkey or Egypt, for the money that will cost you to bring one student to the UK or to America. So it's not going to be a priority to bring students to the UK or America or Europe. However, if universities have places that they want to offer that are funded, that are sponsored, we would be more than happy to take them, absolutely. But whatever funds we raise, we will try and have to be as cost effective as possible and spend it on as many students as possible, rather than spending too much on one student, bring them to the UK. The other way that people can help is by volunteering through our faculty portal, to be part of one of the committees that we will need. And as I said, we do have reasonable number, and we have up to 200 now, but the more the better, sharing the load, and that a lot of people will bring different experiences that we can utilize and use.
So, Helen, if I may add, if that's okay, I mean, I think, you know, the issue of money, and I know we speak about it jokingly, but in fact, FQMS and PALMED are part of the drive to try and plug that gap within the medical education system. And we're, of course, going to be delighted to be working together. And this is part of, I think, us joining this meeting together today. And we've already had some meetings together on the issue of the educational side. FQMS has funds to some extent. Of course, we will always want more because the need is so huge. So I think the important thing is that we all will want to work collaboratively, and certainly FQMS is very keen that that collaboration is there with PALMED and with others in this mission. The point about, I think, also the places for students in the UK, Europe, and the US. I mean, one of the limitations about the US is that the curriculum in Gaza particularly is UK based. And therefore, the deans tell us that they would rather have a UK-based educational system, which makes it easier for them to then be able to assess the students at the end of that period. But I do feel, and I do agree with Mahmoud, that we think there needs to be a drive to get universities in the UK, Europe, and elsewhere to take on students with scholarships linked to those things, because we cannot expect students to come over here and pay an international student fee, which is, 20,000, 30,000 pounds per year. So there needs to be, I think, a push from a lot of us, particularly those of us who have influence within the universities, to try and influence that decision to help much more. And then my final point about the link with the universities is there's also the other side. The advocacy part of this mission is very, very important. Our links our aim to try and link up the universities in Palestine generally, but Gaza specifically, with universities in the UK and elsewhere is very important. What we're seeing in campuses across the world, particularly in North America now, are very, very important. These are things which can change the political landscape, and this needs to happen. The political landscape cannot be seen as divorced from what's happening on the educational or health front. So I see several sides to this aspect, and to linking up between universities here and in Gaza particularly.
Absolutely. If I just want to make myself clear a bit, what we want to do is for the students to maintain the registration with Al-Azhar or Islamic University, because if all the students cancel their registration and disperse everywhere and go to different universities, the two universities will die. So we want them to maintain their registration, and the preclinical years, they will do all the education on the platform that we're creating. What we will be looking for is clinical placements, so 6 weeks of general surgery, 6 weeks of medicine, 2 weeks of obs and gynae, whatever according to their curricular requirements. We don't need them to register with any other university. We don't want them to actually register with any university, but obviously the clinical placements have to be sometimes organized through medical schools. And if these medical schools can provide the funding, or the trusts can provide the funding, or charitable organizations can provide the funding, we would be more than delighted to bring students here. And I agree totally with what Khaled was saying. If we can push universities, push trusts to provide funded placements, that will be ideal. We're not asking them to register the medical students in their universities. We don't want that. We just want them for the clinical years to provide clinical placements. Any student from Al-Azhar or Islamic University that registers with us will qualify for our support and access to the educational materials that we want to provide, and also hopefully the clinical placements that we will try and provide. So once we have, once we are able to go through all the students' registrations, see how many clinical placements we need for year 4, year 5, year 6, and then once we finalize the clinical placements that we can guarantee in Gaza, we'll match them with the ones in Gaza, especially the ones that want to stay in Gaza. The ones that we cannot match for placements in Gaza, then they will be offered to leave and hopefully do clinical placements elsewhere. But if you're a medical student in Gaza and you register with us, you will qualify for our support.
I would just, I agree with what Mahmoud is saying. I think I would just add, Sohail, that as an organization, FQMS does not necessarily deliver teaching. We kind of support the structure of teaching and help provide funding for that for those activities. We very much value and rely on the deans and the administrative structures within the universities, and want those to be active and leading in the sense of what we do, because they guide us as to what they expect out of their students. I appreciate the desire not to have a gap in the medical education. I mean, respectfully, I do have some reservation about us being able to deliver teaching and catch up in this year. And Mahmoud, I met a few students when I was there recently, and I had to be frank with them and say, look, we probably have lost this year, and I think we need to accept that. But in the grand scheme of things, you'll make up. I mean, when you and I look back at our careers, and we look back at where we were, 20 years ago, a year doesn't really make a huge difference. And even if it wasn't this year, we know that the students who started their education, who were meant to start their education this coming year, are not going to. So we're always going to have a gap of at least a year somewhere. I think, though, as I say, my main point really is that we have to make sure that the Gazan deans and medical schools tell us what they want. And I'm very happy that what Mahmoud is leading on very much fits in with this. And I spoke to, both Mahmoud and I have been in touch with the deans from Al-Azhar and Islamic University. Anwar, who's the dean of the Islamic University, is still in North Gaza. And he texts me on a regular basis to say, this is what we're doing. And in fact, they've already set up a system where they have a representative authorized to take action in Cairo. And this is a man who I spoke to. They have somebody in Turkey who's working on their behalf, who's allowed to sign documents on their behalf. And I think that's a very good model to have, because it gives us outside here the ability to make decisions with them about where we should go. I think we have to be open to everybody, and this is where the desire for a huge amount of funding and a very open scope is required.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So I'll just finish with one final question. I just wanted to also highlight, though, in the chat, you've got the Union of Gaza Medical Students Initiative has about 2,000 medical students data and can share with you all what's needed in order to choose the accepted groups to suggest supporters. So hopefully maybe that's a useful link to bear in mind. But just because several people have asked it, people are asking, who do we get in touch to volunteer? Some people have filled out the GEM form, for instance, but haven't heard back. When do you think? Obviously, you're incredibly busy, but should they follow up or not? So again, just a quick final question: how can people volunteer with your groups?
As I showed you, it's on the website, the registration form for faculty and for the students as well. Everybody's registration is there, and we've already looked at it, and that's why how we assign people into the different committees according to their wishes. But as I said, we've just had an influx of 60 more faculty members which we'll need to assign. And once we are ready to go, before we're ready to go, obviously we will let the faculty members know what they're going to be doing. We've assigned the year leads, we've assigned different people for different groups, but people will be notified, hopefully in the near future.
And I think I would just add to that, Mahmoud, I mean, maybe this is fresh off the press. I've just met somebody today who said to me, he represents a very big organization that provides healthcare in the Middle East, and said to me, we have the system, the infrastructure to try and help providing not just healthcare remotely, but also education remotely. And I think these opportunities we need to bring together and to try and understand what capabilities we can use. So it again, it just goes back to the idea that there's a lot of desire to help, and we've just got to be able to put it together and come up with a viable option at the end of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we thought about when we designed this scheme. It is not under an organization's umbrella name. It's an umbrella organization for everybody that can contribute to it. So nobody can feel, oh, it's a PALMED initiative or something else. No, it's open for everybody to work under this umbrella to deliver this ambitious scheme.
So hey, may I just add, you made a comment about putting in forms and so on. One of my concerns about the data out there is there are lots of sources, people approaching students, asking for their data, asking for them to register. And I think Mahmoud knows probably one example that him and I have come across recently. I do worry that there's a lot of data phishing going on, and the students who are desperate to get their education going are falling foul of these organizations whose motives are fishy, unusual, vague. And I would just, for students listening out there, I would just say, I would counsel to be careful about where you send your data. You need to ensure that the people receiving your data are well-meaning and that it's not going to be used against you. We all know the pitfalls of data out there, which is being used for suspicious reasons.